The wad of cash in my pocket felt like a warm, lumpy secret. It was a little over $2,000, all earned by me. For the past 6 months, every spare second I had was spent hunched over my laptop, my fingers flying across the keyboard, mixing and mastering beats for local artists. It was my passion, my side hustle, my future. And today, I was finally buying the professional-grade studio monitors I'd been dreaming about. The ones that would make my music sound like it was coming from a real studio, not a teenager's bedroom. My mom, Sarah, was proud of me. She's always been my biggest fan. She works a lot, some kind of big corporate job downtown that involves a lot of conference calls and serious-looking suits. But she never missed a chance to ask about my music. "How's the next masterpiece coming, Leo?" she'd ask, ruffling my hair as she passed my room. This morning, she'd left a note on the fridge, stuck on with a magnet shaped like a cartoon sun. "Go get 'em, superstar. So proud of your hard work. Call me when you're done. Love, Mom." Her pride was a fuel source for me. It made the late nights and the skipped hangouts with friends feel worth it. The money was tangible proof that I was good at something. It felt heavy in my pocket, but in a good way, like an anchor of accomplishment. I walked into the downtown branch of Sterling National Bank, the one just a few blocks from my mom's office. It was big and intimidating, with marble floors that echoed every footstep and ceilings so high they probably had their own weather system. I pulled my hoodie down a little. It was my favorite one, a soft gray thing I'd had for years. It was comfortable, my security blanket. I didn't think anything of it. The line was long, and I shifted my weight from one foot to the other, my hand unconsciously resting on the lump of cash in my pocket. I just wanted to deposit it into my student account and get the cashier's check to pay for the monitors. Simple. When it was finally my turn, a woman with a tight smile and perfectly coiffed blonde hair looked at me over her glasses. "How can I help you today?" "Hi. I'd like to deposit this into my account, please," I said, pulling the wad of cash out. It was a mix of 20s, 50s, and a few hundreds, all a bit crumpled from being in my pocket. Her smile faltered for a fraction of a second as her eyes landed on the money. It was a tiny change, but I saw it. The way her eyes flicked from the cash to my face to my hoodie, then back to the cash. "Account number?" she asked, her voice a little cooler now. I gave her my debit card. She swiped it, typed for a moment, and then her brow furrowed. She started counting the money, slow and deliberate, like she was handling evidence at a crime scene. She ran it through the counting machine twice. "This is a lot of cash for a student account, young man," she said, not looking at me. She was looking at her computer screen. "I know," I said, a little bubble of pride rising in my chest. "I earned it. I produce music." She gave a non-committal hum and then picked up her phone. She pressed a button and spoke in a low voice. "Mr. Henderson, could you come to my station, please?" My stomach did a little flip. Mr. Henderson? Why did she need a manager? I'd deposited money before. This was just more. A man in a crisp suit that looked a little too tight and the shoulders walked over. He had thinning hair combed over his scalp and a face that seemed permanently pinched in a look of mild disapproval. He looked at me, then at the teller, who gestured toward the money on the counter. "Is there a problem, son?" Mr. Henderson asked. The word son didn't sound friendly. It sounded like a label, like something he'd call any kid he thought was up to no good. "No, sir," I said, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. "I'm just trying to deposit my money." "And where did you get this money?" he asked, his eyes boring into me. I felt a flush of heat creep up my neck. Why was he asking me this? I told her I produce music for local rappers and singers. I've been saving up. He shared a look with the teller. It was a look that said, "Yeah, right." My heart started to beat a little faster. I suddenly felt very aware of how I looked. A black teenager in a hoodie, with a pile of cash. The pieces clicked into place in my head, and a cold dread started to seep into my bones. This wasn't about the money. Not really. I remembered the talk my mom had given me when I was 12. Not the one about girls. The other one. The one about how to act when you're dealing with authority, especially if you're by yourself. Keep your hands visible. Be polite. Don't make sudden moves. Don't give them any reason. The problem was, sometimes your very existence was the reason. You have any proof of this? Music production, Mr. Henderson asked, making air quotes with his fingers. The condescension stung. Proof? It's on my laptop at home. I have a website. I can show you on my phone. I reached for my phone, but he put his hand up. I don't want you reaching for anything right now, son. My blood ran cold. Reaching for anything? Did he think I had a weapon? My mind was racing. I was just a kid trying to deposit money for my dream equipment. How did it get to this? I could feel the eyes of everyone in the bank on me. The whispers starting up. I felt like a criminal. My pride from this morning felt like a distant, foolish memory. Now, all I felt was shame and a growing, helpless anger. Listen, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. It's my money. I earned it. It's not dirty. You can check my account history. I make small deposits all the time. This is just the first time I saved up this much, Mr. Henderson wasn't listening. He leaned over to the teller. Call them, he whispered, but I heard it clear as day. Call who? I asked, my voice trembling now. He straightened up and looked at me, his face a mask of smug authority. We have a protocol for situations like this. Unusually large, undocumented cash deposits. We have to be careful. You're calling the police. I whispered, horrified. You think I stole this money? I'm not thinking anything. He said coolly. I'm following procedure for the bank's protection. Now, I'm going to have to ask you to step over here and wait. He pointed to a small, isolated chair against the wall, away from the other customers. It was the chair of shame. Every person in that bank was staring at me, their faces a mixture of curiosity, pity, and suspicion. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to scream, but I remembered my mom's words. Don't make a scene. It will only make it worse. So I walked over to the chair, my legs feeling like they were made of lead. I sat down and put my hands on my knees, just like my mom told me to. Visible, non-threatening. I felt my phone buzz in my pocket. It was probably my mom, wondering how it went. I couldn't answer. My eyes started to burn with tears, but I refused to let them fall. I would not cry in front of these people. The next 10 minutes were the longest of my life. The world seemed to move in slow motion. The polite murmur of the bank, the stamp of the teller's machine, the soft ding of the elevator, it all sounded muffled, like I was underwater. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. I thought about the stories on the news, the ones that started just like this. A misunderstanding, a call to the police, and then a tragic ending. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through the anger and humiliation. 2 police officers walked in. They were big, their uniforms crisp, their belts heavy with gear. They went straight to Mr. Henderson, who pointed a discreet finger at me. They walked over, and the whole bank fell silent. One officer, older with a tired face, stood back a little. The other, younger and more eager, stepped right in front of me. What's going on here, kid? He asked, his hand resting on his hip, near his gun. Nothing, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I was just trying to deposit my money. Your money? He asked, skepticism dripping from his voice. Mr. Henderson here says it's a suspicious amount of cash. Where'd you get it? It was the same question, but this time it was backed by the weight of a badge and a gun. My carefully constructed composure started to crumble. I earned it, I repeated, feeling pathetic. I make music. The young officer said, we're gonna need to see some ID, and we're gonna have to check your bag. He didn't ask. He told me. I slowly took out my wallet and handed him my student ID. I didn't even have a driver's license yet. The other officer took my backpack and started unzipping it on the floor, pulling out my notebook, a textbook, a half-eaten bag of chips. It felt like a violation. My whole life being turned inside out on the dirty floor of a bank. People were openly staring now. Some even had their phones out, probably recording. I felt naked, exposed, less than human. I was no longer Leo, the music producer. I was a black kid in a hoodie, a suspect, a potential criminal in a place where I was supposed to be a customer. The younger cop was looking at my ID. Leo Maxwell, he read aloud. He looked back at Mr. Henderson. You want to press charges? I just want the situation investigated, Mr. Henderson said, puffing out his chest. "We can't be too careful." And that's when the world shifted. The large glass doors of the bank swung open, and a woman walked in. She was wearing a sharp dark blue pantsuit and heels that clicked with an authoritative rhythm on the marble floor. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek, elegant bun. She radiated a calm, powerful energy that immediately drew every eye in the room. She scanned the bank, her eyes sharp and intelligent. For a second, her expression was one of professional focus, the kind I saw when she was about to take a big conference call. Then, her eyes landed on me, on the two police officers standing over me, on my backpack's contents spilled on the floor, and her face changed. The professional mask melted away, replaced by something fierce and primal. A lioness seeing her cub cornered. Her steps quickened, the rhythmic click of her heels turning into an urgent, staccato beat. "Leo," she said, her voice cutting through the silence. It was tight with a controlled fury I hadn't heard in years. I looked up, and for the first time, I let the tears welling in my eyes fall. "Mom," I choked out. She was by my side in an instant, her hand on my shoulder, a solid, grounding presence. She didn't look at me. Her eyes were fixed on the police officers, on Mr. Henderson, who was now looking confused. "What is going on here?" she demanded. Her voice wasn't loud, but it had a low, vibrating intensity that made everyone, including the cops, stand up a little straighter. "Ma'am, this is a police matter," the younger officer said, trying to regain control. "We're investigating a suspicious deposit." "Suspicious?" my mom repeated, her eyebrow arching. "A teenager depositing money here and from his own small business is suspicious? Or is it his hoodie that's suspicious? Perhaps it's the color of his skin that's raised so many red flags?" The officer flushed. "Ma'am, the bank manager reported it." My mom's gaze then shifted to Mr. Henderson. It was like watching a predator lock onto its prey. Mr. Henderson, who had been standing there with a self-satisfied smirk, suddenly looked uneasy. "You're the manager?" she asked. "Yes, I am," he said, trying to sound important. "David Henderson. And you are?" My mom held his gaze. "I'm the person who is going to accept your resignation by the end of the day. Effective immediately." Mr. Henderson blinked. He let out a short, incredulous laugh. "Excuse me, I don't think you have the authority to." His voice trailed off as my mom reached into her purse and pulled out a slim, elegant wallet. She flipped it open to a black business card with a silver logo, the Sterling National Bank logo. "Sarah Maxwell," she said, her voice as cold and hard as the marble floor. "Chief Executive Officer, Sterling National Bank, North American Operations. Now, let's try this again. What precisely is going on with my son?" I watched Mr. Henderson's face. It was a spectacle of collapsing arrogance. The color drained from his cheeks, leaving a pasty gray pallor. His mouth opened and closed a few times, like a fish out of water. His eyes darted from my mom's face to the business card, to my face, and back again. The confident, smug bank manager was gone. In his place was a terrified little man who had just realized he'd made a catastrophic, career-ending mistake. He went completely, utterly pale. The older police officer, who had been quiet the whole time, stepped forward. "Ma'am, I think there's been a serious misunderstanding." "You think?" my mom shot back, her voice dripping with ice. She turned to him. "Did you ask my son for his side of the story, or did you just take this man's biased word for it? Did you see a threat, or did you see a stereotype? You emptied my son's backpack onto the floor of a public bank. You interrogated him. You humiliated him." She knelt down and started picking up my things, my notebook, my textbook, the bag of chips. Her movements were sharp, angry. I just sat there, watching her, a strange mix of relief and a fresh wave of shame washing over me. Relief that she was here, that she was fighting for me. Shame that she had to. She stood up, my backpack in her hand. "This investigation," she said, looking from the officers to Mr. Henderson, "is over. Officers, you can leave. Mr. Henderson, you will go to your office, you will clear your desk, and you will wait for a call from Human Resources. Do not speak to another customer or employee." The two officers, looking deeply uncomfortable, just nodded and practically fled the building. The entire bank was watching in stunned silence. The teller who had started it all looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. Mr. Henderson was still standing there, frozen, pale, and trembling. Miss Maxwell, I was just following protocol. I didn't know. You didn't know he was my son? My mom cut him off. That's the problem, Mr. Henderson. It shouldn't matter who he is. He is a customer. He is a child. And you treated him like a criminal because of your own pathetic, ingrained biases. Your protocol is a shield for your prejudice. Now get out of my sight. He finally moved, scurrying away toward a back office like a kicked dog. My mom turned back to me. The fury in her face softened instantly when her eyes met mine, replaced by a deep, aching sadness. She put her hand on my cheek. Let's go home. Leo, she whispered. She led me out of the bank, her arm firmly around my shoulders. I felt like a little kid again, being rescued from the playground. As we walked through the glass doors, back into the sunlight, it felt like I could breathe again. But the air still felt heavy. The lump of cash was still in my pocket, but now, it just felt like a cold, dead weight. The car ride home was silent. Mom drove, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. I just stared out the window, watching the city go by. The buildings, the people, the traffic, it all looked the same, but it felt different. The world felt less safe than it had this morning. When we got home, she unlocked the door and I walked straight to my room and sat on my bed. She followed me in and sat next to me. The note she'd written this morning was still on my bedside table, where I'd put it. Go get 'em, superstar. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. Leo, she said softly. I finally looked at her. Her CEO armor was completely gone. She was just my mom, and her eyes were filled with a pain that mirrored my own. I'm sorry, she said. For what? I asked, my voice hoarse. You saved me. I'm sorry you had to go through that, she said, her own voice thick with emotion. I'm sorry this is the world we live in. I gave you the talk. I told you how to act, how to be polite, how to make yourself small to survive encounters like that. And you did everything right. You did everything right. And it still wasn't enough. That's what breaks my heart. And that's when I broke. The tears I'd held back in the bank came in a flood. A deep, racking sob tore through me. A sound of all the fear and humiliation and anger I'd swallowed. My mom just wrapped her arms around me and held me tight while I cried. She held me like I was 5 years old and had fallen off my bike, stroking my hair and whispering, I've got you. I've got you. We stayed like that for a long time. My sobs eventually subsided into shaky breaths. What happens now? I asked, pulling away and wiping my face on my sleeve. Now, she said, her face hardening slightly as the CEO peeked through again. We make sure it never happens again. Mr. Henderson has been suspended, and his termination is already in process. The teller will be undergoing mandatory, extensive retraining. I'm scheduling a company-wide review of all our policies on suspicious transactions to root out any language that allows for this kind of profiling. And I'm personally funding a new community outreach program to help young entrepreneurs, especially from minority backgrounds, navigate the banking system. She was trying to fix it, to use her power to mend the crack in the world that had just opened up under my feet. I appreciated it. I really did. But the hurt was still there. It's not fair, I mumbled. No, baby, it's not, she said, her eyes sad. It's not fair at all. All you did was work hard and be proud of yourself, and they tried to punish you for it. She took my hand. Leo, don't let them take that from you. Don't let that man in his cheap suit take your pride. You earned that money. You earned the right to be proud. What you do in this room, with your music, is brilliant. It is valuable. Don't ever let anyone make you feel small for it. Her words were a bomb on a raw wound. Later that evening, she ordered our favorite pizza and we sat on the couch watching a stupid comedy movie, just like we used to when I was little. It felt almost normal. But every now and then, I'd see her look at me, a worried expression on her face. And I knew this day would be a scar on both of us. The next day, a courier delivered a large box to our door. I opened it, and inside were the studio monitors I'd wanted to buy. The best ones. There was a note on top. in my mom's familiar handwriting, for my superstar. Never stop making your music. It's one of the best things in this world. Love, Mom. I set them up in my room. They looked incredible, professional, real. I sat down at my desk, powered everything on, and pulled up the beat I was working on before all this happened. It was upbeat, energetic, but when I listened to it, it felt hollow. It felt like it belonged to a different person, a more naive version of me from 2 days ago. I closed the file and opened a new one. My fingers found the keyboard, but this time, the melody that came out was different. It was slower, more somber. It had a heavy bass line that felt like a weight in your chest, and a high, mournful synth that sounded like a cry in the dark. It was the sound of sitting in that chair, of feeling 100 pairs of eyes on you, of the cold dread of injustice. It was the sound of my mom's fierce love. The click of her heels on the marble floor. It was the truest thing I had ever created. The money was still in my pocket, and the monitors were on my desk. But the real takeaway from that day wasn't the equipment. It was the harsh, painful lesson that my success, my pride, could be seen as a threat. And it was the beautiful, powerful truth that my mother's love was a force of nature, strong enough to stare down hatred and tear down walls. The world was more complicated and dangerous than I'd thought, but it also contained a love more powerful than I could have ever imagined. And as I sat there, pouring all of that pain and love and confusion into my music, I knew one thing for sure. They hadn't broken me. They had just given me a new song to write.